Okay, I'll do the screen share. So put on the screen the refuge prayer. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. And then we'll do the mandala offering. This one here. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, oil and sun and moon. Imagine as a Buddha land and offer to you. May all beings enjoy this your land. Nidam Gurana Mandala Kam Niryatayam.
当年一月中的这边龙确确实实看见点点我上脑中，这个叫做说的人的这样说特别重要。啊，这是嘛？这他妈这我这世界个，从这世界上了，不是。或者这个是被某种就动画的片子这个，这类叫做的这种片子，或者那面上。擅长送个过劳的人没给上淘宝这边中文中，这位中学特别在网也是在深夜弄了不明明这个这件事在这边这边温度这边，都马路中间上面，他在给别出现中国网络上的边上。大概这我的这个嘛，头上三节问题这样嘛。我家是山里的是吧？养着欧巴的老家，这点就是这个我这这大个的妈妈我的人，快大的就是路多吧，路着宝贝那我走的，三界这道不也中啊？我想着关着的你下次。那也全世界的所能听得啦，当年就把我上的全当作是什么？像是反正当年下次去到底世界的都到了那些上街就该就上街，这当作你就让我像是反正当年下次去。大约去年几月走当天，到了那些商业就来做。işte le tamam. Mesela da derindo simcin koni ma yere ta ya sava da seva dikido seva dikido.
So today we're going to start going through this explanation on bodhicitta, and it's also the first day of Sakadawa, the month of the Buddhas celebrating the Buddha's enlightenment.
Sanji jomden de ya toman aranzu nashin barwa. Be nyumo ni kwa ne de. Da sanji jomden de toma ani da 아 여우슈는 둔두 스세세다. 제위스의 총. 둔두 손자다. 안에 샹주 선다. 다 간다. 단들이 닝닝종다. 안에 샹주 선. 대단 저 거는 동반이 있다와 정도 되고 거는 안에 상제제다. 간다. 아니 지금 또 시스템 말이다. 진짜 뒤뒤뒤 다 뒤쪽 예 탄다 싸가다 와서 진짜 뒤나 기울여야 돼.
At the beginning of the Buddha's life, he was like us. He was full with afflictions. He was someone who lived in samsara. And he was born as the prince, the son of the king named Siddhartha. And then he developed the renunciation, the practice of renunciation and bodhicitta, and then combining that together with the view of emptiness, he was able to achieve enlightenment. So this period of Sakadawa, this time we're in, is a commemoration or celebration of that.
뭔데? 지나 다무 가서 산지 좀 된데 라도 중앙에 돼. 근데 디 나디 세바 된스 거다. 사가다 세바 된 라도 좀. 제가 제바 지 중앙에 쪽에 가려면 제가 나시 동네에 시바로 당고. 님 도와미 제가 나시. 당고는 그런 제보로. 제보시 제다 롱주 무슨 처벌이야. 다 이내 다 고지다. 안에 라도 중앙 찍시. 아니 미 폼복기 도와 찍시. 아니 근데 마우스 톤도 되네. 다 저게 저도 좋아하는 세운도 들려지기. 그래서 딱 한다 뒤뉴 상용이 맞지. 아니 폼복기 화이 저쪽가는 기도 같은 주시용이 다 나와던 근데 가 아니 내가 찍스 진짜 근데 주시 젠젠 아 할라 나 딜레 타야지 요나서 삼 딜레 타야지 또단 딜레 다 더가나 되나 마 지부 있네야 제가 나시 동네 딜레 되기도 이 강도고 너 딜레 타야지 다 타고 있어 이단다 산지 콤방사 신타이다니 신경이 된도는 예 산지 콤방사 탐나마도 띵원 도스 딱 한다 오토스 제 코마 그런 도스 제
So in general, the the Buddha, the Bhagavan Buddha, he went through these different phases of his life, and the renunciation when he left the palace and renounced, that's considered the seventh day of Sakadawa. So next week, seventh day of Sakadawa is the date of his renunciation. So why did he renounce was because he saw these sufferings that come in the human realm. So he was a prince who could have become the king. He was ready to become the king, and then he saw different types of suffering, the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death. So he actually left the palace, and then he witnessed a corpse, and then he also witnessed a sick person, right? Someone who was ill, and he witnessed an elderly person, and then he saw all this suffering and all these sights, and then he thought, oh no, well, is there some way to be free from this? Is there liberation from these sufferings or freedom from them? And uh, he thought, if I stay and become the king and stay in the kingdom, then that I won't be able to. I'll still have to meet with these sufferings. I won't be free from them. So then, what would be the way to be able to be free from these sufferings? So he saw that that would be becoming achieving the stage of Buddhahood, state of Buddhahood.
제가 dinero 아니 제가 여행질라 잡도 좋아해 말이야 아니 다 제가 제일 끝당 버렸으면 진짜도 아니 정말로 현수 봐 아니 정말로 상제 봐 아니 정말로 양해인데 봐 지난달이 다 제가 산적이 제가 망부지역에 나네 제가 뒤에 나왔디나 다 돼야지 사바다 그때 봐 현수 봐 양해인데 봐 늦드빈 제바스타 산지부터 늦드빈 온도세 제바타 온다 된 다와디나 영어티 기다 계시부스가
And then after the seventh, so the seventh is the date of the renunciation. Then there's also after that the date when Buddha was born, and there's also the date when he entered into the womb of his mother. And on the 15th of the month is when he both achieved Buddhahood and also passed beyond sorrow, or went into parinirvana. So those all occur. All those events of his life occur during this month.
그래서 너디나라 저 산제 출루디 양소에 가서는 다 레니 사마 수술해요. 년 철로 타위람 된지 타와랑 요가 지시송. 아주 산제예요다. 그래서 아주 같은 산제예요레슬라 지자. 아주기 줄에 요비 차당로 소비 로티디 생기랑 신뢰요 말이었어. 디슈 때문에 갈리갈리 매버서비나 매버서투야 미바데 나랑솔 요레스. 지난 뒤에 sonza 아니 말한 산지예요. 뜻계시고요.
So the best aspect of the Buddhist tradition, the Buddhism, is that we all have our own responsibility and our own potential we all make our own karma and our own actions. And then we have the ability to remove the afflictions within our own mental continuum. And the reason for that is because these afflictions are not actually, they're not sort of they don't actually sit within the nature of mind, right? They're not integrated in with the nature of mind. So that's why every living being has the ability to remove the afflictions and achieve Buddhahood.
일단 만족이 차단되기 그거 또참 좀 맞이되기 생기상신을 중요이나 안 만족 상제요만 계산 차단으로 좀 로브建了点就마도 생기상신을 요만 생기상신 어서와 주만하는 로브 어서와 남대 나로 계산아 생기상신들라 주매고 손자 만족이 차단으로서 로티기디 쩐다 아니 디기 파 가야게 사모다마 아니 이 가투야 니바디 만족을 탄다 여바다 제 여바지 뭐 손자 아니 만족 상제 여래 심진담지 상제 니바 여래 세디 데르타 식 여래 손도
So these different minds, attachment and anger, these are again not within, they're not integrated into the nature of mind. If they were, then we would not be able to achieve Buddhahood. But they're not actually part of the nature of mind, and the nature of mind is clear light, as it says, as Dharmakirti wrote in the Pramanavartika Karika. The nature of mind is clear light, and the stains are adventitious or temporary. And so these stains are things that are kind of added onto or they're only temporarily present based on various conditions that arise, and then they come and go with the various conditions. These things like attachment and anger, and so if we start to see that those are flawed, we start to see them as problematic, attachment, anger, and so forth, then we'll be able to actually start removing them. And it's because there is this ability to stop them, to block them, right? We do have the ability to stop them, and then we talk about that means that we have the ability to become Buddha. That ability to become Buddha, we use this term Buddha nature. That's our Buddha nature.
되게 안에 다들 준비 나온 데서 너가 충고 공부를 너가 전부 공부할 수 있어. 오늘 나야 문제도 무대 강요 많이. 맞아 단다 차소기 로든조 컨트롤러서 로든조 매버스에 열이. 매버스에 간제열스를 되잖아. 아니 디기 록쇼 소바. 그때는 컨트롤 록쇼 소바. 아니 단다 마리비 록쇼 아니 시럽 라소 디기디 로드 공부이나 공부 때문에 만수 로를 맞제바 공도 배 열이스. 제가 뺀 차샤나스 먼저 소비 냠는데 제바이나 너가 충고지다 간다 집강의 춘종질라디 쇠네 강의 첨불 농련 제토아지 용도 왔어 너가 춘종의 공제 너가 전부 준비네 들라 네 지민이 소비에테네 아 농련 카베자니 용도 왔어 제가 로드 가리네 구매야 요르 공비 때야 요르 디송디도.
So there's a quote from the Bodhicharyavatara, the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, where uh, the paraphrase, I don't have the text in front of me, but with a small harm, by becoming familiar with a small harm, then I will be able to endure great harm, or pains, or great harm or pains. And then and the next line says, and there is not a single thing in this that exists which does not become easier with familiarization, with habit. So that's why we can come to see that we can completely remove these problematic afflictions like attachment and anger. We can just make them completely non-existent, and that's the way to do that is by starting to familiarize or habituate our mind to the opposite of them. So the anger's opposite is practice of patience, or resilience, you could call it. And then the opposite of ignorance, for instance, is wisdom. So by starting to create a habit of these opposites to the afflictions, these other minds, types of mind, wisdom and patience, then you can come to remove those afflictions. So again, we start with, for instance, in developing patience. How can you do it? Well, you start by having patience for small difficulties and small harms. And even though you might not have ever had that kind of patience before, then you can start small and then develop a new kind of attitude or mind that you didn't have before, and then make it increase and develop strengthen it. So then you can eventually come to face great harms or pain.
아주 메시나로 차시나라. 이제 강의 취존 경우도 스tig마나 시스템나로 봐 친구 주도이지. 강의 제 취존 시체에 있는 근데 뭐 중공 주종 봐 있는 딜레센 버더다진 아니 강의 친구잖아. 안 강의 세마도 강의나 홍딩이 되는 도와다. 제가 진짜 아주 메시지 나는 차샤에 있는 그래서 강의 제 취존 갈 때는 딜레바 상호단의 고양고진 아니 이 매르스에 탑시 갔다. Do sometime. And 탑시에는 탑시지. 아니 디 심 강계는 만 생각해. 응? 봐 되지. 갈때 디 강계 세 매위나. 아주 동해지는 줘요. 말이야. 강계는 문제제는 줘요. 갈라나 텐데 준준 나오 여러다. 가디 주스요나 텔라무가 지시요스. 가디 주스 메나 텔라무가 지시 펜스. 그래서 심플한 그 양분이 냐 패키지입니다.
So then we have in our life so many different types of problems that we will face. We face various problems, they arise from various conditions. And then when we have something like a small problem arise, then often what we will do is then we'll turn it into a big problem through our thinking, our mind. Our mind will turn it into a big problem. And so then we have to learn to deal with these problems in a new way by thinking about how through our thinking when we face a problem, whatever kind of problem, however big it or small it is, then first we can just think, is there a way to overcome it, to resolve this issue or not? So finding a method to resolve it is the first. And when we do that, then our mind can stay very calm and kind of keep an open or more spacious way of thinking. And that's really important to try and just kind of keep your mind in an open, wide open. And then we see that, okay, well, sometimes there are problems where there actually is no real clear method, no path to resolve it. But then even then, it's not going to help to turn it into suffering. Why then would we try to turn it? Why then would we allow it to become suffering for us? So that's why there's another verse from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, where Shantideva says, if there's a problem and it has a solution, then why be upset? And if there is a problem that has no solution, then how does being upset help you?
아주 메시지 띄우고 싶어. 진짜 메시지 띄우고 싶어야 강의 갈 때는 동네 제토. 들라 싸도나. 강의 참아 생수거라마도 기대요. 제가 강의 세야 생부터 세고. 이 남자들 소소 야구는 아니 실제 가리 체버리네요. 들라 동네 제토.
So learning to think like this is very important. Using our mind and thinking is very important. And whatever kind of problem we face, then we'll be able to, whatever kind of problem we encounter, we'll be able to face it, we'll be able to endure it. And because actually the way that we overcome problems is through the mind, by using our mind. That's the only way we can actually overcome our problems. And so if we learn to think kind of along these lines, then no matter what external conditions we end up facing, whatever external conditions are there, we'll be able to face them. We'll be able to just to kind of withstand them.
지금 그냥 그 생각.
So, so this is something that we all need to keep in our mind. So please keep this in your heart and mind. And it's very important. Sorry, he said one of the. It's very important that we are happy in this life. So this is how we can make ourselves be happy. We can give ourselves happiness.
기분 쏘쏘쏘. 나도 시행성이에요, 말다.
So having a happy life is something that you have to make for yourself. Someone else isn't going to be able to make it for you, make you happy.
난이 닭이 보니, 난이 닭이 다이. 레던 멤버 세벌로 난이 닭이 빵구이 송으로 산지가 제가 하선한 만족된다 소속 샤주 야구 제비 있나 상무당당당 주가다 아래 있는 야구 제비 있나 수준 그런 차도 상제도 하고 말았다 탑 투나 수준 그런 수준 대지 아니 상무당당 누구 제 아니 내가 누구 제비 있나 아니 수준 다차 가 수수를 내가 찍어 내가 챙기들 다세고 진짜 다니 다기 다이 레다 멤버 제발라 야고다 독자 제발라 소소 빵보레스 아니 디스토그레스 좀 먼저 오늘 야고다 봐 당하라 주소나 따다 또 좀만은 저등이 강에 체등이 참아 소소 소저로 망체 미시 자과적 제임제 어디든지 소소 좀만도 데디 코랑 있어요 당원에 저는 밀게서 야구시 상당다 시대 바페 데딩이 가서 코랑 있어요 진짜 나랑도 때 간데 미세 야구신 되고요 난 미세 야구인 되고 나신 나랑도 좀 제야구
So it's up to oneself to create happiness. And there's a verse from the Buddha where it says, "You are your own master and protector. You are your own enemy." 그래서 단이 자양이
레다 님버 제바 레스는 야고로 레다 니바 니바 쥐로 니바 제발라 다니다 빵부
뻥보서는 뻥이
빵부 빵부라나
뻥보서는
서포트 말때 빵부스라나
땅이
말이 빵부치 있으라 가지고
다샤이 다샤.
빵 더반을 빵빵 공부
그래. 그러나 tim
네. 맞아.
So the verse, you are your own master, you are and protector, you are, or you could say guardian here, you are your own guardian and master, you are your own enemy, your good karma and your your negative actions, your good actions and negative actions, those are the witness. Those are the witness. So if we are really living well and doing good actions in our life through our thinking, through our actions, then it's like you become your own guardian. That's what gives you protection in life and allows you to be happy. If you act poorly, negatively, and in a bad way, then that's like becoming your own enemy. That is because what does an enemy mean? An enemy is someone who harms you. And so that's going to harm you. If you look in society, like look in a prison and see all the people who are there, the reason they're there, all the bad things happening in society and the harm that's done is because those people are creating it. They're, doing things like killing others and raping people and, these negative actions. They come from the people themselves. They create their own problems, their own suffering. And so, so then if we see people who are very, at peace with themselves, kind of a very balanced, emotionally balanced person who has a lot of well-being, that's also something that they made themselves.
아니야, 그 야구 때리느냐? 이 미가 매줬어. 쥐 매줬어. 미가 쭉 친구가 맺어서 서울에 이 나고 말이야. 네가 친구 쉬고 했다. 미세 끼우 요한 못 주고 봐. 네가 매번 말이야. 어제 되는 티플 네가 더 이거
So in oneself, to be good, to be a good person, do good things, you actually have a great ability to do that. All of us have a great ability to do that. It's not like in our life to have a good life. It's not like we don't have the power to do that. We have the power, and it will grow as we try it.
아주 이가서 그주를 맞도 가실래. 나 야구치는 초스 때문에 야구치에서 강에 마음을 튀기도 생겼는데 여러 가게 저한테 내열에.
So we have like in Tibetan kind of just a thing people say is kind of a what do you call it, cliche, kind of, it's like, oh, it's not worth it to try and be a really good person, because all the people who are really, good kind people, they face more problems, they deal with more issues, they deal with more problems, so it's not no need to be like that. Is that also something that kind of you guys say in in your culture?
My friend's been as long.
Forget it.
이마 노래 그치 그거는 야구딩이 민박 관리 되는 거야. 그 메시지 이름 나오라 뭐고 매로 세비나 수수 링키어서 무슨 아니 거인이 기회 있었어.
뭐고?
뭐고 매로
Local.
뭐고 산소이나다 지금 뇌를 직접 잡을 직접 삼고 그다음에 근데 매로지. 그래서 뭐고 잡는 매로. 그 전에 관리 메시지 간서 시스템나 링키어서 근데 메시지 아무것도
Things are so
링키어
things.
링키어
So so this is a mistake. This is it's, even though it's a cultural, saying that we have, it's actually an error, or a mistake. That's not correct. So being good, acting well, and having, leading your life well, that's going to slowly make your life happier, make your life better, but it takes time. And so it's also very important to live in a way without kind of being duplicitous. What's another word for that? Like, you know, saying one thing and doing another, or doing things behind people's back. So to not do that, and if you can live that way honestly and transparently, then you'll have, self-confidence. You'll be strong mind.
뭐들 나만도 로체인다고 하시다 나만도 계산되랬다 상주도 셈세리다 제가 네 상황아주 동소리지 말이다 셈레치기 소소슈 좀 제요 버죠 이 인지미 상담하는 최세 파샤 아주 그런 로가시는 데디가 뭐 최다 생준인 제디 버지 이 인지미 뭐 마셔
So now we'll move into the lesson, to today's class, which is about bodhicitta again. And bodhicitta, it's not just some fairy tale. It's not just a story. It's something that we actually can bring into our mind, right? We actually can make it merge into our own mind stream. And so we have to put effort at that. We have to work hard to make that happen.
이거 상담전에 듣는 선생이 쓴나 이게 해야지 와
So if we think about it, then just naturally there'll be some feeling that, we'll be moved in our mind. Some feeling will come.
뭐들다 예타나스 주 첨부 람지 짐바고 장올라 숨숨과 다 태진지 주고 셈지 코나 때문에 안에 셈비치다 집이 소 셈제니 저발을 해 소세다 숨제
Okay, so I'll just read. He's going through this current the outline, or like, I guess it's like the table of contents. We call it an outline. Sorry, I'm just gonna change it out of full screen, but it's not working. So okay, try and open a new window. That might be the best way to do it. Oh, okay. Okay, everybody can see? No. Oh, this one. So now we have the section of text, part 3, training the mind in the stages of the path for persons of great capacity. And then there are 3 subsections. Training the mind. It says training the mind in the stages of the path for persons of great capacity is presented in 3 sections. 1, showing that developing the spirit of enlightenment is the only entrance to the Mahayana. 2, how to develop the spirit of enlightenment. And 3, how to learn the bodhisattva deeds after developing the spirit of enlightenment.
단단히 쭉 첨부 랑로 종스라든 쭉 첨부서도 강사 봐. 자, 그래서 보는 또 첨부 되게 잡아라. 네 가르치는 쭉 첨부스라든 샘자침. 그러. 다 타다냐비 심지 탐제를 제와체네. 네 생기 된 타협을 제기 냐비 심지 간다 줄에 이미지를 쭉 첨부스고. 제상 디 강사 쭉 첨부 간대 차도 디 차비 심바들라 아니 마두리스 다 드로발라 랑바스 거르고 먼저 진짜 랑바들라다 디송거와 대진주 주고 한 심지 코나 템바스라 알용 디송.
So we have this phrase, persons of great capacity. Now, actually, in Tibetan, the word is just a great person, and great actually is the same word as just big. So it's just a big person, great person. So Rinpoche is saying, so when we say a big person here, it doesn't mean someone who's fat or tall. doesn't mean that. But it means that their mind is vast, someone who has a vast mind. And so why is that? Because they are they're willing to work for the welfare of sentient beings who are equal to the infinite space, right? Who are infinite. So when you look at this kind of person and you ask, well, how did they get like that? How did someone become a great being like this? Then you also start to think, and I want to go and become like that. I want to go into that, have that mind. So you have to see that there is a path there. Right? There's a way to get there. So that way is expressed here, and showing that the spirit of enlightenment, that's another word for bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is the only entrance. That's the path.
네. 제가 대진 주고서요. 다 대진스라도 대바천 보스 봐. 대바천 보스라비나 아니 타다냐비 심지기 된도 산지기 고만 타베야기 이와 송딩이 된절라 대진 반세다. 장지부 타와 타베들라 아니 유테 대기 세고라 마타들라 지단 테메세고 테메세도 도 계속 말이야. 이네 디상 가산 마야나 네카레 디 마야나 히네야나 마주 지다 페메다 테센슬라디 멤베 계셔 말 두어 계셔 계요 마다 이네 디산티 고르고 서로 주다 그래서 지다 디 진소나 장물을 무신 다 갈송어스라비나 아니 날렌적이 아니 주주신 다 간다 줘봤다 아니 단다디 빨리 추적이 줘봐 두선 거 제가 딱 간다 얘한테 가르쳐 거로서는 제가 막 상무 나눠라 장지부 타와 사무주 장등이 줘요 봐 들었다 빨리 트디싱 나로라 아니 장 상제 계속 손모양 아니 장 타바 더 지부 퀄리 줘야 지부 상담 단다 퇴체 봤어야 되기 사무로 나로라 가려서랍니다 장 상제 제가 장 상제의 사무 숙청부 주도 될 퇴체 봤자 미 디송니 아니 최기도 사무 다해 줘 봤을 퇴체 봤어요 제가 다 디기 랑과디 주발라 심제 마도 야 말해서 다 심제 코나 때 봤어 샹주의 심세 심제세 다 디기 랑과디 그거요나 저기 샹주의 심제나 마도 샹주 랑과를 줘요 다티 람바를 주야라 인지민지 아니 산주 sem 판나를 신용 말해서
Now we're talking here about the entrance to the Mahayana. Another word we could say is the door to the Mahayana. The entrance here is the same word as door. So the door to the Mahayana. And so the door to the Mahayana means, well, we can, it means someone who is really, who's in the Mahayana. And what is the Mahayana? That is the path for someone who's the vehicle for someone who is trying to achieve Buddhahood, is aiming towards their aim or their focus is to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings who are again, equal to the infinite ends of space. And the difference is between then the other vehicles that are different in Buddhist practice than the Mahayana are called the two hearer vehicles, the two hearer paths, and those are also termed Hinayana. Now we have this traditional phrasing of Hinayana Mahayana, and it doesn't mean that there's any distinct. There's not like Hina meaning lower vehicle, sorry, or lesser vehicle versus Maha meaning great vehicle. We'll have to use the English here. So the lesser vehicle, great vehicle, but the lesser vehicle here doesn't mean that it's somehow worse or that it's actually lower. It's but there is this sort of interpretation, or people get the sense of that that's kind of what it's saying, or that it's derogatory. So then His Holiness the Dalai Lama has decided to use different terminology from the traditional texts. So he refers to the Mahayana as the tradition that comes from Nalanda, or the Nalanda tradition, which was a great monastery university in India. And then the Pali tradition, Pali being the language which the Hinayana texts are written in, are recorded in. So that way it kind of avoids that misinterpretation. But the real difference then, if it's not actually a question of being worse or lower, then it's just about what's in the person's mind, right? What is their motivation or in their mind? So for people who are practicing, like if you look at the Pali tradition and those teachings, they don't talk about achieving Buddhahood, right? They don't have that as a goal. Instead, they talk about achieving liberation for oneself, achieving liberation meaning a freedom from samsara. And then the Mahayana then is where again you yourself are trying to become a Buddha. You in your mind, what is your thought is I want to become a Buddha for the sake of all beings who are infinite. And so the only then this uh, section one here, talking about the door or entrance to the Mahayana, is saying that the only way you can go into this Mahayana is by developing bodhicitta, by developing this mind expansion, is another word for it in Tibetan, Senke. Senke means mind expansion, which is just a synonym of bodhicitta. So apart from this mind expansion, there is no other way to enter into the Mahayana. There is no other door for you to go into the Mahayana apart from bodhicitta.
지금이 아주 디레다 대칭 방문에 제상부연으로 하나다 상적이 셈토라 배바지 상적이 셈 마제바 제바 공급해 상당도 그러나 다 디토레 bomba 셰투나르다 캡산 카르르라나 소소 지우용르다 생카레는 오늘래와 딱 가다가도 디 방안에 마우송송 최 대바 전부 최 이거 팽이만 가사 대바 전부 제버려서 와 정서 진짜 그디 럽션 님부로 다 상주의 셈다 된데고라 상무 마모다도 센데나 아니 소소의 셈들 야고 레바 냐토다 아니 딜레 때는 윤대 공 윤대 마타바 타바시아 타바 공도 배소도 다 차당 장장의 상무인데 난 아주 가지고 있는 강의 체리다 이나 당연히
Now, this great to if you really are thinking, I want to become a Mahayanist, someone in this great vehicle, uh, and then you have to be able to generate this bodhicitta mind and this mind expansion and whatever you haven't yet developed, newly developed, and whatever has already been developed to continuously increase, improve it. So what's the value? What's the purpose of doing this? It makes you happy. That's the purpose. You will become happy if you do that. And so it's really about developing this mind in yourself, like it said in the earlier portion of text that we went through in a previous class, that just having a Mahayana teaching, a Dharma teaching of the Mahayana, that's not going to benefit you at all. The person who is practicing it or studying it has to be a Mahayana person. So it's about yourself being a Mahayana, really being a Mahayanist. And so this bodhicitta is the kind of heart advice of the Buddha. This is the heart of all the advice. And when you are able to spend your days, spend your time, spend your life thinking along this lines of bodhicitta and that have that be your attitude, then naturally you'll be able to have patience and your good qualities will just continuously grow and strengthen. However, if you spend your time thinking along the lines of attachment, of anger, then you'll just have so many more problems. You'll only have more problems.
More than that's simply to that you chose to do the Shanju is simply. And even the simply to that you chose the Shanju is simply. Candace Jewels. Jib switching songing. Same Jenny hanging man. And it Juvala have to that same Jenny Juvala have to say Shanju is sim. That the money day Shanju Simpson and Middle, Dashin Jill going to Shanju Simpson and Middle. Kanda Shanju is sim. Jenny in that Juvala Harla was Jinso passing to the level. Jinso passing to Lamy, Sing 28. Jizan Juvala loves to do. That Dilaya also theory that she do she sing massing said in the year that and the Muslim than Juxim say Euro. Like Jizan D Taku catches you more that the jelly on the whole. Jizan that same Jenny Juvala loves someone now on the Karuna. Tangi same Jenny Candice Pendoche to love it. When it Jinso passing to return, Shing Dunche.
Then next section after that is this number 2 that's coming is how to develop the spirit of enlightenment. So that's the method of developing the spirit of enlightenment. And then the third one, how to learn the bodhisattva deeds after developing the spirit of enlightenment. So then after you develop the spirit of enlightenment, it's not going to be of much benefit to just develop the spirit of enlightenment, but after developing this bodhicitta, then there's training that you need to do. So whether you talk about the bodhicitta, which has the 2 purposes, or the bodhicitta that takes on the universal responsibility for oneself and others, however you phrase it, the bodhicitta, the actual way that you benefit others is through the 6 perfections. So the way you actually achieve the benefit of others is by training in these 6 perfections. And then there's the distinction that will come later in the text between engaged bodhicitta and aspiring bodhicitta. So this distinction is made depending on whether the bodhicitta is conjoined with this practice of the 6 perfections or not. Yeah.
Just Juvala to Madufana, around the Lale, Ketovas, Carriers Lavina, Shang to Chigi, Carolina, and the Chembatao. And then Shingy Chit Chembataya, and Shingy Chit Strum Soya. And some of the Strum Soya Euro, and Chiki, no. Chasm la so good Loti, and then Nambijula Chasabrina, and then Dumi, then that Dadu Song Chova, Dadu Song Dabanda, 아니 뭐 진짜라 때는 lunde 마체야로 소바 송나 여러 예 주름 지단 소다 리지스라 소다 리지 강공을 내 진짜 주름 송이 땡가라서 투버디 때나 아 니네게 동바다 아니 기니게 동발로 소바 tunzo 토네 주름 송이 또 디바시 카베니 생기체도 상당비나 아니 생기체도 좀 아니 생이치도 소바꿈이야. 아니 생이치도 즉 삼로 소수 투비나 선제지고 대지네. 아니 즉 싱싱도 never 자세죠. 한다 중도산. 지난 디레전 띵인절에 내니 생이 되지. 아니 싫어. 로팔린지. 다 파쇼딜라 가르 펜토야 가르도 삼모도 제바제 콜 펜도 제 가르도. 싫어 빼나 तार कभी शराब से आदि दामे तो भी शराब द तोनी तो भी शराब न तावा तो भी शराब ला सोला सेवी और इन्हें या शेंगी तो है ना खर्च को खर्च तो सामुदाम लेनी इंचे को खर्च तो तिदे के तो अन्य शेंले पेंटो चे ताकि मराजू अंदर तू बत्ते रहता
So we are talking when we talk about the practice of the six perfections, then this is really again kind of bringing it into action or integrating it into your life, into your practice. And so this is when you again are going about and you these six perfections with the motivation I want to bring about the welfare of others. And thinking it along those lines, then if you practice generosity, giving to people, or practice ethical discipline, and ethical discipline has many different ways of practicing it. There's within like your family, right? You do different, there's different ways of course, practicing for your own welfare. But when you think about practicing ethics for the sake of others, then it becomes this perfection. So like, different things you would do in your family to not harm people, not having a relationship or with someone other than your partner and things like that, thinking about their, for their sake. So when you do any of these actions, ethical conduct, generosity, and then the third perfection of kind of call it patience, right? Or like I said before, resilience or effort, concentration. So doing these for the sake of others. 소터 이렇게
소다 리지
Okay, so yeah, so I just had to I didn't quite catch the word, but so he's saying also for ethics, there's the actual types of vow. So there are 8 different types of vow called the individual liberation vows. So there's a variety of different ways of practicing as a lay person, a householder, also for monastics, and there's others that you can practice, and you do that for thinking of for the sake of others that you're doing it, then it becomes a perfection. And then how would you like practice concentration for the other's sake when you're focusing your mind? Well, because again, you're thinking about kind of, you're kind of, if your mind is disturbed or overwhelmed, and then you just, you make an effort to focus it single pointedly and practice concentration for the sake of others, then that's also perfection. And wisdom can be thinking about how are you going to benefit another person, right? What do they need? What would be helpful to them? Now, it also refers to, these developing the realizations of selflessness, impermanence, understanding emptiness. That's also wisdom. But here, particularly thinking about how would you benefit others is, just using your intelligence to think, what does that person need? How can I help them?
로버도스
Zupa,
조금 보면서
Yan lain yang bisa kau cari seperti
아니티 페노 도바 보면서 소바 페노 소바 때라 소바 제베나 남이 지기나레 에 강에 망고시 세도고 소바 공부이나
so for instance about this patience practice, like if you're within your family, if you're able to develop patience and meditate on it, then you actually can help to resolve many different problems that you might face or that come up.
직제 안에 단다 딜랑아도 디스티브로 님바마와 텐텐바 텐지어 봤을 뉴모부 시스가라 뉴모부 시 님바마와 아니 보아진바 네 텐지어가 텐텐바스 제가 먼저 계신 님부시에도 뺏게 전부 있어요. 계속 주부시는 신콘불랑도로 계신 님부시 디전 신이 시대의 뭐 님바를 마와서 님부 계신 님부시에 되는 님바를 마와 아니 코아진바 코아진바 슬럽디 고코 가리요 페나 콜 고코 매버지 때바이나 코기 디 달린 지금 나와 페나 콜 가르 콜도 디 파트 제야 되지 코아진바 세 아니 된템바다 된주 봤어야 됐다 산주스미 주바이나 가리나 소소긴 냠내 제네 데드 템바 셴라파 대체야 되다 된 주바 된 템바서야 돼 지금 디 말한수 답변나 계신님 보셔야다 안에 수속이 지금 미션이야 지금 전바다야 좀 아주 제투로 하다 이미지 지금 아주 단단한 누구 차상 이어지고 알레는 끼마
Didn't come but didn't you like
그래서 라네 제네 아니 라네 제바나 신라 아피시 좀 고야지
So then there's also practice in addition to the 6 perfections called the 4 means of gathering disciples, the 4 magnetizing actions, something like that. So one of them, so this is to speak pleasantly, and then to give what is needed, and then to act with meaning, and then to act harmoniously, or sorry, concordantly. So what they mean is, so speaking pleasantly is just when you're talking to say things that that are nice, so that if you speak in a harsh way, then people will become upset. If you speak very pleasantly, pleasingly, then people will naturally feel peace, and that's important to speak in your way of conversing. Then giving what is needed is practicing generosity, but really to think about what does this person actually need, right? What is value? What is necessary for them? What is, what do they need? And then giving that, and then acting meaningfully and concordantly. That means like what you are acting in accord with the Dharma, and you're acting in accord with what you say, kind of what you're doing, so that so acting that way. So when we think about these things, talking pleasantly in a pleasing way, and practicing generosity and giving people things they need, it's things that we have the capacity to do. It's just a matter of whether we actually put it into practice or not.
그러나 그런 남자신이 신라 람등이하고 제외인데 집에 공도 집바스디 집이지 뭐지 때 계셔 말아 아주 추기 집바 민집이 집바스라도 틀럽디 집바스에 인지미지 지 용모고 잘라지 파담 계셔게 아니 물라 람등이하고 제외이네 람등 스테도 때 집에 공도 이게 뭐 쇼링이네 봐 참 집에 공에 신을 구실 제외이네 참 집에 공
And so if we give someone advice out of a really pure motivation to help them, then that actually becomes a practice of generosity too. So generosity doesn't mean only giving things. It's not only about material giving, but actually there are 3 types of generosity: the generosity of material generosity, the generosity of dharma, and then the generosity of it's called I guess fearlessness, giving protection, essentially, right? So that means that we don't have to practice generosity. We don't have to give something an object, but giving some guidance or helping to show someone a good path, right? A good course of action is generosity. Then even things like giving a smile, that can become generosity. And then also giving, what did I write here? I can't read. 그치, 타마디 기모셔나 좀 쪽이래 아니신.
아니, 구셔체.
구샤샤오래. And also giving respect is is generosity. That will go become a practice of generosity.
이런 거, 영쇼가 있는 대상가를 영쇼, 그 영쇼 그냥 마찰리적으로 있는. 이거 뭐시네. 안 돼, 상도. 그 디펜 너리 이사리. 그래서 주도 망제 들으세요. 뭐래.
So then sometimes if you like are smiling at someone or then they might think, or if you laugh or smile, then someone might think, oh, that person is trying to make fun of me, and that's kind of a different, the way some people think, right? And somehow they may interpret that way.
이 백현대로 문제는 그 영쇼야 sem나 파 구셔버서 야 아주 영쇼 그냥 그 영쇼 그 마찰리적으로 그 영쇼네. 디펜 너도 똑같다.
So if someone thinks like, because someone's smiling at them, oh, they're kind of making fun of me, then I don't know them. Why are they smiling like that? Then that's again a kind of flawed way of thinking, mistaken way of thinking.
그다음에 셴라 게무쇼 안데잖아 소소 기울인 거 봐. 뭐네. 셴라 게무. 아니 파쇼 미체데지나 그 생각으로. 아주 롱스 주도는 파쇼데 세면 남다 용으로. 이미 그게 지금 파쇼데 세면 좋아질 일다 많지.
But really, if you smile, at people, then they will become happy, right? It makes people feel happy, feel pleased. And then Karishina,
세면 좋아지지로.
또
지금 생긴 파쇼 게무지 전에 내용도 다 망치야 지금 세면 좋아지. 세면 되고 기분이 있어. 다 파쇼시 너무 나오래.
너무 나오래.
그냥 맞지었어.
So then, yeah. So if you're smiley, if you're looking at people and smiling, then they just feel happy. They feel there's like attraction, right, to that. And then if you kind of give an expression that's, I don't know the best word, but kind of unpleasant, unpleasant expression to people, then they'll feel, scared or kind of turned off from it.
다슴지 내가 좋아하다디 그다나 인사부 다 제일 용거로 봐. 그쪽으로 간데스라우리 주소 파신 쪽이냐면 간데시기를 든도 토고 제일 용거로 다시 지방을 일단 도나한테 되시죠.
So this is a very basic way of thinking about the bodhisattva deeds or practices, but later in the text, the later chapters, that will go much deeper into exactly how to do these practices.
다 뭐들 다 방법 대진진 주고甚至困难点봤어야 될라다 대단한 대화 정보는 주고나 주고 뭐 강이냐나 송보다들.
Question. Given that you should enter the Mahayana in the above-mentioned manner, what is the entrance?
내가 저와 제위스가 산지 좀 된데 단지 저와 된데 봐. 안에 산지 좀 된데 바로 되신 비 대화 첨보다 상하지 템버 이수송 정도다. 산지 좀 된데 바로 되신 비 대화 첨보지. 상하지 대화 첨보들라 니요 바로 되신 비 대화 첨보 상하게 대화 첨보 송샤스.
We reply, the conqueror taught that there are no Mahayana vehicles other than the perfection vehicle and the Tantra vehicle. The conqueror means the Buddha. So another word for a Buddha is conqueror or Bhagavan, sometimes Bhagavan Buddha. And so he actually taught two different types of Mahayana. vehicle or Mahayana. There's the perfection vehicle and the tantric vehicle. There are those two. And there's no other Mahayana vehicle other than those two.
아니 파르디심비 테바침보다 상아지 테바침보 이게 고 강이 주자 아니 상주지 셈 코나이 손다 상주기 셈 코나이 다 야메나 파르디심비 테바를 주고 있네래 상아지 파르디심비 상아지 테바침보 나는 주고 있네래 아니 주고도 상주기 셈이랬어
Whichever of these two you enter, the only entrance is the spirit of enlightenment. So whichever of those two, the perfection vehicle and then the tantra vehicle, whichever of those two you enter, then it's only through the spirit of enlightenment that you can enter them. The bodhicitta.
율라 남제위나 아니 시신 가야 마제장 대체 먼저가 인라스 다 계산 때 율라 제위나 송로 상주 셈디 율라 제위나 신 가야 마제장 아니 강사대 대화청도 적으래 해서만
Once you have generated the spirit in your mind, you are recognized as a Mahayana practitioner, even though you may not have generated any other good quality. So once you generate this in your mind, this bodhicitta, it really says mind, but since they're using the term spirit of enlightenment, I guess they said spirit. But once you generate this mind in your continuum, then you become a Mahayana practitioner, even if there's nothing else, no other quality or no other type of mind that you've generated.
그거는 저 상주의 셈든 저 사모시당 아니 니니웨이나 참베이나 파워심베이나 참아 쫓아들고 있어 그러 오늘 이나도 셈긴 슈스 야베이나라 레라고 제토야지 네가 참고 이용하실 좋아요 셈난 또 슈점베이나 레라고 쫓아봐 저거 이용하시기가 쫓아야
So when we have this bodhicitta, then every kind of virtue, the kind of easily will come, we'll be able to easily develop the accumulation of merit and virtue. And then when there's different problems that come, we'll easily be able to overcome them.
대답 되났다. 대답 남태와 났어. 상주기 셈대다. 태위나 아두이네서 때 남세디 뒤쪽이 미진자 뒤쪽 무슨 말과 남태위나 한 동반이지 따와라 소비 윤내 지여자 미터라 소비 살통신 아니 대체발이 냠바 임비 태바 전부 숑 도말리 송신 리비장 아니 주바이노 송 단디 가르송거스라미나 다 대단 남태위나 상주기 셈다 남태위나 아니 동반이라 소비에서 다 윤대 동반이다 수준송하라 또마다 다 간다 아니 야 진소 파신 쪽이 냠레 잠직 요이네야 아니 니터살라 홍바 또 대체발에 아니 냠바레스 다디 쇼트마 두두세두다 주주요리 아니 지침차마 요리 쇼망고요 다들 사망하는 송요 상주 셈티 대화침부 주고 임바 안에 지비장 주거래세디 지상하서 지배 삼로 갔던 걸로 쓰려면 지배 토네 안에 곧 대체 봤어야지 먼저 기타이 컨디션 나셔리 안에 삼로 야치종 토네 저거 같이 마도 안에 지원 유매다 안에 류체종다 안에 지 콜라 왕차 유매다 콜라 또 누가 유매 토네 말어 대체 봤어야 돼. 상주기 셈. 주라 집에 토니 조고 요가 손자 아니 집이 tuk도 와서 왔다. 집이 장 주가 있노스.
When you separate from the spirit, no matter what other good qualities you may have, such as the knowledge of emptiness, etc., you lapse from the Mahayana, falling to the level of a Shravaka and the like. This point is taught in many Mahayana scriptures and is also proved by reason. So here it's saying that at the very moment when you lose or separate from this bodhicitta, this mind, then any other good quality you have, if you have knowledge of emptiness, your practice of ethical conduct, of all the six perfections that you're practicing, they all become just practices of the lesser, the Hinayana. So then you fall from the Mahayana. And this is taught in many Mahayana scriptures, like, for instance, the Precious Garland by Nagarjuna, as well as the Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. They're, and in other texts as well, but they all say that this is bodhicitta is the only door, the only entrance into the Mahayana, and they make this point. But then also proved by reason, because again, what we have to understand about Mahayana is that it's being a Mahayana person or not is about the the broadness of your thinking, or the vastness of your mind. So whether your mind is vast or smaller thinking, so or more limited thinking. So then it doesn't really matter if you have to take various empowerments of tantric empowerments, or if you have, again, you're just kind of a powerful person, and you have, power and wealth and different strength. But none of that matters. It's just your thinking that determines whether you're a Mahayana person or not.
이번에야 티루 봤었어요. 균이시지 봐 티루지. 그게 샤워시비시 봤어요. 다 디나나 티루시 베토네 군도.
So when we talk about reason, there are four types of reasoning that are explained. There's the reasoning of kind of logical reasoning, then reasoning of dependence, reasoning of nature, and then and then the reasoning based on functionality, reasoning by function. So this is an example of logical reasoning by logical proof.
뭐도 지나 안다. 아니 저도 챙기러 디파체도 좀 디게 첨부여러. 샤워시비르가 티루리가 추니리가 세리 뚜두리가 두서 사무당토나 마무지 팽이로.
So if you're able to think about these different types of reasoning, that's it can be very helpful. So learning these terms and then thinking about the reasoning of logical reasoning of dependence, reasoning of nature, and then reasoning based on a function. If you're able to think about those, that can be very valuable, very beneficial.
모델. 디나 당보 캐치버 쳐봐야 하신다. 다디 디나 세다 주세 대임베 인두 안타 주세 단다가 정토만에 솜바타 테두지 발라 소바티 로바 인디 디나 아니 당보 대체버 쳐봐야 대체 나는 주가 쳐버세도 쳐봐 대체버 나는 쳐버다 스템디 제바점 좀 줘라 스템디 제바점 아니 샹주기 스템디 제바점 지 대체만 줘라 시 대체만 디 나네 텀바 대단 저와 점진 조비나 대체만 나는 스템디 유미지 지순 로도시토스 다 어쨌든 저한테 당연히 챙기러 와 아니 링게만이요 샹주기 스템 제네야 지 님바 차바이나 샹주기 스템 동아이어스 거라 다디 알레테르 당년에 샹주기 스템 지지 야한테 용상 말해서 발려 당샤바 있는 거라 다 디 텀바이나 저와 잠진 조반에서도 다 시태진비 나니 텀바 대단 저와 잠지스 다 아무 샹주기 스템 지지 되네 아니 샹주기 스템 려 당바이나 아니 대진비 나니 텀바레스 아니 대체반은 심디 유메지 제순도 시도스다 대체바 세야니 아니 상주의 semyo나 대체바 상주의 semyo나 대체바 멤버디 아니 로도시기레스 제순도
Next paragraph here. The initial entrance into the Mahayana is determined by the development of this spirit alone. A subsequent departure from the Mahayana is determined by its loss alone. Hence, being a Mahayana practitioner or not is contingent upon the existence or non-existence of this spirit. So this is there's this expression of being kind of definitive of the definitive family of the Mahayana or non-definitive family of Mahayana. So if you're in someone who has the bodhicitta but is non-definitive, that means that there's still a chance that they might lose bodhicitta. And what that would mean is that first they develop bodhicitta and enter the Mahayana, and then they think, oh, you know what? I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can really do it. So they give it up. So someone can give up the mind of enlightenment, and then they fall back again to the Hinayana. And so they leave they would kind of exit from the Mahayana vehicle, the great vehicle, and it's just this presence of bodhicitta, whether it's there or not, that determines whether you're in the Mahayana or not. So it's sort of being the Mahayana follows after having bodhicitta or not having it. Leaving the Mahayana follows after not having it.
order that day madi thinking na la so de shanchu simji jene kijiki kuri sonra gambi nyamtana de she namji seji gyushashin that the wala kare jide hamuju shasha chursa yoro jide hamuju shasha chursa jida ta shanchu simde kiji zamji jebe inaya ani Deroshewa sanje namji sesi la gudes se chugres and se chuba zamde matsebi ani kuwi nyamta ani leda nyumo gi tsura nala damdembi lenyo gi damdembi jiwu namji ani jide hamul chubi ani sha chigres tutu kumri shashe chus
Lenyo kitambe
simjen da simjen jambe tuzuya hadame yorwa tinsu tsame shashe yu chugres
chasa. Oh,
shashe
So you become a conqueror's child immediately after generating this spirit. As Shanti Devas engaging in the bodhisattva deeds, Bodhicharvatara says, it's the same as the guide to the bodhisattva's way of life. The moment helpless beings bound in the prison of existence develop the spirit of enlightenment, they are called children of the Sugatas. I mean, Hamagare? Oh, okay. So then, and then there's another line that follows after in this verse that's not here, but it says that you become an object of honoring and prostration for people, humans, and gods. So as soon as, again, someone, even just for a moment, uh, develop develops this bodhicitta, then you are called a child of the Buddha. Sugatas here means Buddha, so a child of the Buddha. And then you also become someone who, for those beings who are still bound by karma and afflictions and samsara, you become an object of worship or for them, someone worthy of prostrating to. So
지상 시장 아주 상주 시스템 고마에 대해서 아주 쉬운 시간. 뭐전에 고마에. 그래서 뭐전에 간데서 공부를 슬라비나 된다. 저번 인디에스라고. 단 덤바니 된람나 삼로 간도 장산지 덤바지 신심지 람군데 덤바 삼로 이거 지상 다 되니 뺏게 참 다 가래를 라비나 만조 산지에 소소 대고 지고 용에 둔다 삼다요 장산지에 신타의 심정이 든다 산지기 신타의 든 산지고에 가래를 했으라비나 신된 매매의 용 야구 용어야 단단 만족 갈려나 감다 매가 삼바 지다와신 하고 두고 아주 심증이 제장하다 라산제 이 삼루디 신심증이 산제 삼루디 숙침부지 매나 라산제의 유 마치부 산제에서는 펜더스케어 제장 저 성하라 삼루 나가다 저 산제의 가리체들 신도 타입 와요 선자 신도 타입이 된다 산제 제장 아니 라산제의 산제기 되가지 신 산제의 살은 건데 덴바티 통 삼다운다
So now we'll do about 5 minutes of meditation on bodhicitta. And as was discussed in prior class, the meditating on bodhicitta means to meditate such that your mind is being as arising as an entity of bodhicitta, right? Your mind is kind of becoming bodhicitta. So that's how you want to develop this bodhicitta. And what is that then? What is the bodhicitta that your mind is becoming? So it's a mind that has two aspirations. Okay, this bodhicitta is a mind with two aspirations. So one aspiration is for yourself to become Buddha, and the other aspiration is to accomplish the welfare of other beings who are infinite. So then when you have the first aspiration for yourself to become Buddha, it's not just so that you can be happy, right? It's not just to be happy yourself, but it's so that you can effortlessly accomplish the benefit of others. So you have develop the ability, you will have the ability to effortlessly benefit others. Because right now we are not aware of the exact kind of mental states of other beings and their dispositions and their propensities, ways of thinking, their interests. So we don't actually see those or understand them exactly as they are. So if it's just for your own sake to become Buddha, you won't be able to become Buddha. So then what is it for? What's the purpose of becoming Buddha? It's so that you can then benefit limitless, infinite sentient beings. So that's again the two aspirations that bodhicitta has is to become Buddha and to benefit infinite sentient, or to accomplish the welfare of infinite sentient beings, others, accomplish the welfare of others.
뭐 상나하다 미가 선제 탐진을 미내에서도 선제 탐진을 너무 싶다고
So thinking well about this, when you think about the focus of this meditation of all sentient beings, then you have to actually think about all sentient beings here.
선제 탐진이 랑게 마마제가 지감이도 랑게 마마제가 진짜 매워인데 다 텐셔블 다 텐셔블라 다다 마게 선제 탐진 동이 잠수나나 폰디도 다 텔레야 잡아지 녜체고도 제손자 다 군조 산제기 살람 고버 제발라 아니 라산제고도 아니 디바 니세다 뉴두데 시지 디바 디 매버체네 아니 녜산제기 살 저 타다님 선제 탐진이 산제 살람 고기 냠베사 삼 공다.
So thinking of all sentient beings, we can again using reason to see that there is not one sentient being who has not been our mother. And so they've been our mother, and that means have been extremely kind. There's so much kindness towards us. And then how can we repay that kindness? Well, looking at them, seeing that they're all fallen into suffering. So thinking that I myself will help them and save them from their suffering. Then you think, how can I do that? Well, I can do that by becoming Buddha, by becoming enlightened. And then becoming enlightened involves removing the two obscurations. And so I will become enlightened to remove the two obscurations for the sake of all sentient beings. So thinking like this is meditating on bodhicitta. It's how to meditate on bodhicitta.
我对他的其他我就谈到这个世界观的新对是杨道做的相顺对， 기치도 전통의 하와로 다들 동대고 싶도 승제반의 신주듯이 양다고 비슷하다. 기억지. 다들 제는 가르치는 이슬람이나 아니 제니 얘네 진속 파신도 라비기 되치기 산티상은 뜻인데.
There is a verse from a text called the Abhisamala Alamkara, the ornament of clear realizations, and it has a definition of bodhicitta, and it's very pithy. So it's good to keep this in mind, to memorize this and use this to think about bodhicitta. Samge bani shendin che yanda zobe janjute. So it just says the mind expansion is for the sake of others, the desire to achieve complete enlightenment. Mind expansion is for the sake of others, the desire to achieve complete enlightenment. So just those two lines, and then thinking about those two lines. This is bodhicitta, and then bodhicitta again, the same as another word is just mind expansion, and then to think, what will I do after developing bodhicitta? Then I will practice the 6 perfections of generosity and the others.
뭐들 다들 얘기는 되게 산제 리스치 산제스 다주도 상도 되지 야구도 되사.
And then this last couple of lines from the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. And also, today I have been born in the Buddha's family. I have become a child of the Buddhas. So that's a very nice place to end the class. So really, we need this very strong thought that I'm going to do everything for the sake of others, to benefit others and accomplish their welfare. And if there are questions, then you can ask.
Yes. Gordon mentioned about the self-cherishing and how it said that self-cherishing is the foundation of all misery. And in our culture, sometimes we think of self-cherishing like self-care as something meaning like being kind to yourself, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, etc. But I don't think that's really meant by what's meant by self-cherishing here. So would you maybe say a little bit about what is really meant by self-cherishing?
아마 소녀 봐, 랑젠제 아니 강요 감시 중공스 봐. 소녀데 나서 남긴 랑첸제 랑체프르제 라이디 다 인지민지 다낀 티기요 말에 가진세나 다 소소라 칼라 때에서 칼라 야보때에서 주때에서 야 소소 소보 야 다야 되죠 제상 랑첸제 된다는 가리데
나는 진짜 나 이래서 신야월도네 나야고 맞지고 나 짠짠 삼디 제메레스 거사 진진스 근데 아주 신 가르쳐 좀 수수지고 야고 좀나 신야 더샤 티 맞아서 다 제자 먼저 그냥 가시 원래 어디시
So self-cherishing means to think, to have a cherishing attitude towards yourself while abandoning others, while abandoning the thought of others and just kind of leaving them behind. So that's what we shouldn't do.
다 내 가르쳐는 좀 란지고 좀나 삼 디게 야레 두 말다 같이 레 말라 버리나 먼저 신라 마테 맞추는 도사미도 삼로 야고 당근 그러봐 사야 통야 권야 하나 아주 유디에 신라 되는 좀 아주 디삼 당도
So if we think that, it doesn't really matter what happens to others, as long as I'm happy, then that's we can't really, that doesn't make any sense. We can't think that way because everything that we have for our happiness depends on others, comes from others, whether it's food, clothing, shelter, our own bodies come from others, right?
상무 시행을 때 정보를 아주 상무나 소소식 상무로 시행을 때는 뒤지 제일 고가의 상무 코드도 딥코드가 제고
So because everything comes from independence upon others, then we have to try and make ourselves think about that, right? Not just, thinking only about ourselves, but also coming to, bring that into our way of thinking, that everything depends on others.
계산하면서 단다지 상무 시행을 되지 인데
Because everything depends upon others. Everything.
계산 안에다 자 진전세 소소 지부 갈래자 팀마제 송월와 등이가 꾸지 거리 안에 고가 꾸지 거리 손들다
So that's why when you say, thinking about cherishing yourself, it means, again, cherishing yourself while abandoning or ignoring others. That's why we say the verse that was quoted in a previous class from the Lama Chupa is this: cherishing oneself is the source of all problems or whatever it is.
상주 생명량의 제는 랑진제 약속 탑을 개발이 되레스 양으로 무졌습니다. 지난 문의 진진 체계는 시행을 듣고서 시행이 제베이나 아니 랑상지도 뭐 진진 약속들은 일단 진진 차단이 진진 체계고
So actually, like His Holiness says, to truly cherish yourself, the best way of cherishing yourself is to care for others, is to cherish others. And then how do you actually cherish others or care for others is to become Buddha. Now, the way that we cherish ourselves is just by having attachment and anger, and that's the way we practice self-cherishing.
Beginning we talked about how suffering arises from problems and there's no point in being unhappy if there's no solution or if there is a solution. But I think so much of our suffering comes from not knowing if there's a solution. Like so much of our suffering comes from uncertainty. So what are ways to ease the mind of like this attachment to uncertainty?
The choose you nani the make a teaching you the deep temper in a young the Mamposhiki so dungo some of them dungo ke the 탑시 yana mena touch jema tubia 탑시 yana mena toma tuba 어디 양 그래서 그랬다 아니 도바 선반도 도바 계야지 대양 등록 강요 되게 들어서 뒤 동안 제던 가래
지금 아주 좀 탑시 여 말해서 탑시 장고 봐 강이 망고 시키고 강이 망고도 강이라 샤마 강이데 세야도 디 세비 탑만 가를 돌려도 제가 다 강이데 강리 좀 주. 레다 니모세 동이 총세 레다 니모 그래서 레다 니모생이 디 나로 파만 주거지 레다 니모 제가 쥐언도 단 딜라 로 다른 때들이다 지금 당 아주 레뉴 페나 아주 나야라 소바드네 좀바이나 세미 동네 체주야 말이야 와 나와가 소부 나베이나 들 세미 동네 제나 chana lu nari dongas, lula dungi dongas. Ta tel nyamdo semble dungi jesana rawa mero char. Ta nga lu nawe di ko naya jiri. Naya yowach nari mado, naya mewach naya ma. Ko nara o ko kemi doa. Ani ko thaya yore. En kati thaya mena, ani kasa nga do denda di. Mendo dungi chata babjo ya. Lengi diwe segi ju tone, jengen lamdo lobo shenchi lapsila. Mo tindek tona samutang. Pati che lo jana. Mendo dungi chata babjo chans. Mendo bi dungi.
Lama chabisi.
내 돈을 싼다. 약속이 된다 차 대화도 못 내려다. 동네 세야이가 디 사무당 고도 빼고 와가지고 로그니와 Thank you.
So that's a good question, actually. So what we have to do is we have to learn different methods. Actually, we have to increase our ability of the mind to deal with problems and to learn and to increase our knowledge of different ways to resolve and clear away the problems. So when you have some issue, you don't have to just leave it there and just kind of let it be, but you can think, okay, so what would be a solution? And then of really thinking by understanding where do problems ultimately come from our karma and afflictions. So then seeing that your afflictions are the real source of the problem, then kind of in your mind, keeping your mind far away from afflictions, uh, will help you solve problems. Then there's, of course, just situations like getting sick. Your body has an illness. So here, the way to deal with it is just don't add onto that suffering through your mind, right? So if you kind of are thinking about the way that adding suffering on with your mind is to kind of lose hope, right? But the reality is that usually there's some kind of way to heal, right? To have a treatment. So you can think like that. Oh, there's no reason to lose hope because there's a treatment. But then even if not, 그래서 라마초 basically
잠깐만 찾자. 랭이 디비스 위주통. 랭이 바세야 이거 상무다네. 쟁이 람도로 보신. 쟁이
람도로. So there's a verse from that same text, which kind of Neil's question came from the Lama Chipa, and it says that even when sufferings pour down like rain, and I'm full of attachment, I'm full of afflictions, even then please bless me, because it's like a prayer to the Lama. So please bless my mind, or bless me, so that I can take all of these problems into the path. So then that's the way of practicing and training the mind to take the problems that come into the path. And that's a really good question. That's an important question. Okay.
That last thing you said makes sense, because I was going to say, like, there's all this suffering out there, and the greater compassion that we have, and the more we want to alleviate the suffering of others that are outside of our control. So wars that are going on, thousands of miles away, and we see these people dying and suffering, and we can't do anything about it, right? We can't alleviate their suffering, but the greater compassion we have, the more we suffer because of their suffering. But if you take it into the path, that's the solution to, in some regard, that we have to try to find a way to alleviate that internally. But we're trying to alleviate the suffering of more people, so we're being more conscious about the suffering of others. And so the more we look, the more we see, the harder, it's like this cycle of, the more we think about others and their suffering, the harder it is for us as compassionate people to see that and have no solution.
세상 나 강로 더 치기 강로 요. 뭐지기 변화 맞게 돼서 아니 닝지就是닝지 공도여 받당 닝지 숙체를 공도 표기여 봐 숙체를 동도여 봐 얘나 근데 치료기 내서 아니 미션 배동의 뭐 통도 그래 뭐 대서양 아니 소설랑 동요 is 망을 저거라 동요 뭐 차이래 세상 아니 더 guys 미션 배동의 최상 셀도 말아 세상 아니 동요 통화당 닝제께 돼서 아니 소설 동요 차나 소설 동요 영나 아니 다가란다 람라 캐야디 아니 탑람 디레베스 동요 치료기 동요 미션베 동요 통화 람라 캐소디 아레레스
쟁이 제가 이 표현이 맞아. 소설 토로 동의와 쟁이 람도 주수돼. 제가 쟁이 람도 줘봐라. 제가 쟁이 람도 줘봤어야지 소설 토로 동의 용불갑라. 아니 기대위 동의데 아니 랭에 있어야지 주도 통이 아니 랭에 버스에 주통이 아니 지 오늘 저녁에 다 다른 거 생제 유도 쪽 동의 니 토로요 난다들 동의 용어되었디 아니 즉 말이 사실이 랭에디 제부인바 디스에 톤 상모다 디스전의 파 디줄 먼저 동련라고 다 동련 소리 제 용거 렘바지 근데 톤의 상모다 디제르데 다 마제야다 수기 때문에 동의 용어되어 진조게 진행한들 로바티 게 디상모 이야마티 카가리야 다시 마자베다시 동네 망고 토하는 무수비 제와 이지직 제와직 소소줄로 고메네 고메 요래야디 비바체야 이거 이제 아니 셰기 마제 동네디 소소로 수 용어도는 딘 누슈 용어다 누슈 셰기 누슈 띵안도 제 누슈 케요 맞다 셰가르 투소 시대 네 투버지 거다 제가 시쿠유 맞아 있는 누슈 있어요. 이 용주주야
So the teaching or the method of taking suffering into the path or taking negative conditions, problems into the path means when you face suffering yourself. So that's the way of thinking then is to see that the problems or suffering that happens for ourselves is a result of, it's caused by our own negative karma, and seeing that, understanding that, and then also having the wish, thinking to yourself, may all the different problems and suffering of other beings, happen in me. May I take on all these problems, and then all the good karma I have and all the good virtue I have, may that go to other beings. So this is called the practice of tonglen, giving and taking. So you give out your happiness and take in your others' suffering. So these are the ways of thinking to bring suffering or negative conditions into the path. So that's that practice. But then when you're with your question about seeing other suffering and the big world problems of wars and those things, so there it's not kind of talked about as taking that into the path. It's actually there is the practice of meditating on unbearable love. So actually meditating on love, and it's called unbearable love. And then but the thing is that it sounds like what you're talking about is kind of allowing yourself to be influenced by the suffering of others. So that's something that we can try to avoid. So keeping peace of mind in your own mental happiness and well-being, while still seeing others suffering, and not don't let their suffering have an influence on you.
Easier said than done.
bonus word.
Sering French mi di la tu masons kagiwat yang michik tu Priscilla nga magyan wang dagi kitu. Hello, Priscilla. Yeah, he's Rinpoche is saying hi.
Oh, hello, Rinpoche. Happy Sakadawa. Thank you very much.
Check it out, Sandesh. Okay, we can do the dedications. Wait, do I have? Yeah, I have to make sure. Yeah, okay. And then we'll do the Lamrim dedication. From my two collections, vast space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach that state, may I be held in loving compassion for all my life's Manjushri. May I find the best of the graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing, using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion. May I clear the darkness from the minds of all living beings, and with the points of the path as I have discerned them, may I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion, and whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I expose this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this graded course to enlightenment, completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
빨리 어디로 산이 제마 산이만
So then next Sunday, Rinpoche has another prayers that he must attend in New York City. So he won't be there. He won't be here. So then Rinpoche has asked me to substitute to lead the class. So we'll still go through the text. 그냥 언니제를 넣어줘.
이거는 좀 그렇죠. 지난주에 나라는 제가 남만 러시아를 잡아요. 코로나도 최시에 뒤에는 뒤쪽에 대한 상황 야구 이모도 지난 시간 단단 어디 보상때 고정야구 치사 이제 뒤쪽 상황 돌아도 말 인식톤이 같은 시에 코로나 뒤에는 참 야구를 문을
So Rinpoche is he is expressing the hope that when he will have to leave, we have a set period of classes, then he has to leave. He's going to Russia, and he has Dharma connection there. Oh yeah, you can maybe oh yeah, it's just the door. So Rinpoche is asking or saying he hopes that I could, me as Lo Sangdunya, could continue to teach classes. Just the fire on the right, the fire door on the right, glass door on the right. So that's Rinpoche is saying that I could keep teaching the classes after he leaves. Yeah, that would be good, he said. Is your name? Yeah.